Hey, welcome back to Table Flipping Housewife. I'm Amy and I'm glad you joined me today. I'm going to be working on this sweet little dresser that I picked up with Kevin at a garage sale probably a year ago. It has been hidden amongst other pieces of furniture waiting to be painted and fixed up, so I'm finally getting to it today and I'm so excited. This has been painted with chalk paint, and so I think, fingers crossed, that this is going to be easy to bring down to bare wood, and that's my goal. So come join me as I fix her up, and in the meantime, if you like a good table flipping before and after, then subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss future upcoming videos. But let's get started. I always start by thoroughly cleaning and vacuuming my pieces. Now, the best way to do that is to first remove the hardware, because you would be surprised what lurks underneath that hardware. I love this hardware. I can't wait to see how it cleans up, so I'm definitely saving it. And as I suspected, it requires flathead screwdrivers to remove them because it's an old piece, and that's very typical of old furniture. Today I'm going to be cleaning it with Cred Cutters No Rinse Pre-Paint Cleaner because I have 5 pieces of furniture to clean in the next 2 hours. It's the easiest way to go. I actually came down last night in my pajamas and I couldn't help myself. I started working on it with my carbide scraper, and the paint is scraping off quite easy. So that's going to be my goal today, to scrape off as much paint as I can. Now on the drawers, there are some details there that I know will require some paint stripper. I'll get to that eventually, but for right now I'm having a lot of fun scraping the paint off. I have finished scraping the top, and I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and start sanding the top, even though I haven't done anything with the rest of the piece. I want to have a sense of accomplishment by getting the top done all the way. I'm going to switch to my rotary sander. It's a DeWalt, and I'm going to start with a 180 because I'm in most places pretty much down to the bare wood. There is still some paint I need to sand through, so I'm going to start with 180, and then I'm going to switch to 220 to smooth everything out. I do have one of these Velcroed, I don't know what they're called, I always call them squishy pads, but I did get one for my rotary sander. The cushiness of that under the sand pad is going to allow me to sand and preserve those natural curves. I could not sand through that white primer. I took the interface pad off, but that didn't even help. It took 60 grit to get through that primer, and from there I sanded with an 80 grit, then 150, then 220. Wow, that took a long time. That took almost 2 hours. For such a small area, that's crazy. I even had to take out my rubber forms and wrap it with paper to sand the edges, get all the paint off of that. But I made a very interesting discovery along the way. I don't think this is veneer. I think the veneer was removed from this piece prior to the previous owner painting. I found 3 small nails in the back. You would certainly not see nails going through veneer. The other thing is it has striations of green in it, which to me means poplar. I definitely want the raw wood look on the top, and so that will be done easily with the paint wash. This will remain raw, and so will the 2 front spindled legs. I do want to expose those. So for now, I need to strip down those legs, and then we'll take it from there. I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and then I'll come back with some sandpaper, and then I'll probably wrap up for the day. I think the legs are dry enough for me to start sanding them now. I've been spending this time sanding all the drawers inside and out. I'm pretty sure I cleaned this piece because I never bring anything indoors that I haven't cleaned first, but I don't know if I cleaned those drawers. They were filthy. Nonetheless, I went through a ton of sand pads on my Surf Prep. I always save them when they still have a little bit of grit, because then I can use them for hand sanding, which is what I'm going to do on these legs. Now I'm going to be putting a paint wash on the top. I want to preserve this raw wood look, but if you put a wax or a poly or any kind of top coat on top of raw wood, it's going to naturally darken it, and I don't want that, which is why I'm going to add a paint wash. There's enough paint in the wash to add a barrier between the wood and your top coat that won't interfere with the color of your outcome, the color of the wood. I've taken a custom color mix of Dixie Belle paint. It's drop cloth, sandbar, and fluff. In this case, because I have so many striations of color on the top and a lot of it being green, I went a little bit heavier this time with the wash. Equal parts paint, equal parts water. I'm going to use a fine mist sprayer to apply a thin layer of water onto the surface, just to give me a little bit of more open time, because what's going to happen is I'll be painting on the wash in the direction of the wood grain, and then I will be immediately wiping it off. I don't want too much paint to absorb, just enough to add that barrier to protect this relative color and to still allow the grain of the wood to shine through. And here we go. Now sometimes when you do these paint washes, you need more than one application. Just depends on how heavy you want the paint to be or how translucent you want the outcome to be. Oh, I like that. Looks really good. All right. Now you have to keep in mind, this is a different wood than the top. So there will be some difference in the way it looks when it dries. But I can always do a little sanding if I think it's too heavy. But so far I like that. It'll look much different when it dries. Okay. All right, so I just came down to look at it before going up to bed for the night, and I don't like it at all. It's way too white. I'll show you what I'm talking about. That's really awful. Yeesh. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sand some of this off of the top and the feet so I can try something else. The more I sand the legs, the more I really like them. I'm removing enough of that paint wash, but leaving some of it still in the crevices and details of the legs. I really like that look. My second attempt at a paint wash was with Fusion's Algonquin. I used equal parts paint and water, and with 2 applications of this wash, I got just what I was looking for. Now, I had already started sanding some of the brushstroke marks. You can see an old stencil peeping through from a paint job long ago. I stopped sanding to fill in nicks and gouges with wood putty. And then when the wood putty dried, I continued sanding. Now, this is definitely not chalk paint. Look at the way the paint is gunking up my sand pads. I went through a lot of sand pads. This has to be an acrylic, maybe a flat finished acrylic paint. I love this hack from Ivy Lane Interiors. If you put some screws into the holes of your drawers, not only does it create a handle, but it also covers up that hole so any overspray doesn't get inside. I have taped the sides of the drawers and even applied some tape underneath these edges so that when I go to prime it with the drawers in, I won't get any overspray inside the drawers that I painstakingly sanded and cleaned. I'm going to spray an oil-based primer all over the piece, especially where that old painted stencil is, as well as where I sanded down to bare wood. And it'll dry quickly. I'll be able to lightly sand it with a high grit sand pad and dust it just to smooth out anything that may have fallen in the primer. I'll wipe that dust off and then I'll get to spray. The paint was super thick. I filtered it and then also diluted it with about, gosh, this was thick, maybe 20% water in order for it to get through my sprayer. I always test my spray pattern on a piece of cardboard. You can see I actually had to adjust the flow of paint in the back of the spray gun. The following day, I gave it a very light sanding to remove any debris that may have landed in the paint, wiped it off with a tack cloth, and then sprayed the second coat. Even though Valspar cabinet and furniture paint has a built-in top coat, I still want to spray on 2 coats of polys. I will be lightly sanding in between coats with a high grit sand pad, 400 perhaps, dusting it off before spraying on that second coat. While the top coat dried, I headed indoors to work on the hardware. I love this hardware, but I'm thinking that black is not the right color. I took some of Dixie Belle's gold gilding wax and brushed it on with an artist brush. And then you wipe off the excess. Y'all, I'm done. This is by far my favorite project I have ever done. I love this piece. If I had a place for it in my own home, I would keep it, but I don't. So I'm gonna put it on the market. All profits from my furniture go toward paying off the principal of our mortgage. That way I can retire early. So guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and leave me a comment on this video. Your support of my channel will help me get to that goal of retirement sooner. Until next time, see you later.